with yet another allegory from Europe about the tragedy of a man from Russia called Kondratiev. This was a multi-talented Russian citizen who was a poet, publisher. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and honorable senators. I'll be sharing the 30 minutes with my learned friend, Mr. Marius Maranya. In summary, Mr. Speaker and honorable senators, the impeachment motion before you is the third one in barely a year presented before the Assembly against the Honorable Governor Kawira Mwangaza. The first impeachment motion was presented before the Assembly on 22nd of November 2022. It did not reach the Senate because the High Court issued an order preventing the MCAs from debating it. The second one was filed on the 5th of December, and it was brought before this Assembly. It contained, Mr. Speaker, 62 charges of nepotism, illegal appointments, usurpation of the constitutional and statutory functions of county organs. It contained allegations on incitement, bullying, and vilification of other leaders, a matter now still before you. It revolved around disrespect to the Assembly through forceful entry and mobilization of riots against the Assembly, a matter now before you in different particulars. It involved violation of public finance management laws. Again, a matter before you, only the facts have changed, the fundamental problem remaining. And then, of course, that motion came here and it did not succeed. Notably, Mr. Speaker, when we came, the governor took the posture of an innocent and vulnerable victim of toxic masculinity, harmful patriarchy, gender stereotyping, gender discrimination, and political machinations. And in short, the governor took the posture that if something went wrong in Meru, as we submit, something has been terribly wrong in Meru for a year now and counting, our defense was, it wasn't me. It reminded us of Shaggy's song, Mr. Speaker, in which a young man is caught engaging in some hanky-panky, and even though he recorded on camera, he is caught in with all the evidence, a singular response through and through, it wasn't me. After we moved from this Senate, Mr. Speaker and honorable senators, even though the Senate dismissed the charges, it gave the governor many pieces of free advice, free lessons on how to run the county. And after we left here, there was a brief honeymoon of peace in Meru, lasting only a few weeks. This honeymoon was characterized by courtesy calls by various leaders pledging in public to support the governor and promises by the governor that she would turn over a new leaf and Meru would be lastly peaceful and orderly and run in accordance with the Constitution. When we came here, Mr. Speaker, I recall prefacing our presentation about, or rather with the story of a leader in Europe who that time we were telling you had waged wars on all four directions of the campus, north, south, east, and west. On each direction, this leader was at war with another country and another civilization for no good reason. Today, Mr. Speaker, we want to preface the motion before you with yet another allegory from Europe about the tragedy of a man from Russia called Kondratiev. This was a multi-talented Russian citizen who was a poet, publisher, oralist, military officer. He was the embodiment of all the nice things a single man can achieve in a single lifetime. He was implicated in a treasonable act called the Decembrist Uprising of 1825 in Russia, which sought to depose the Russian monarch. Those days, the monarchs were called Tsars, from office. And after he was convicted of this offense, he was sentenced to public execution by quartering. This is a method of execution, Mr. Speaker, that involved tying the four limbs to a horse, and the horse is being driven in different directions, or cutting the body in four pieces and exposing the bowels and whatnot. Pleas were made to Sir Nicholas, who was the monarch, that this was too macabre a method of execution, and even though the sentence could not be vacated, the king was implored to impose a more humane way of execution, and the king agreed that Kodrati Rayelev could be executed by hanging, which I think is the method in our laws for executing people. On the day of execution, and in those days, Mr. Speaker, executions were done in public stadiums, like Nyayo Stadium, full of people and spectators. So on the day of execution, this gentleman is led to the gallows, the crowds watching in the full stadium, and as he fell, you know, you're supposed to fall so that your neck breaks and you die, the rope broke, and Kodrati Rayelev fell to the ground, and after a few seconds of dizziness, he dusted himself and addressed the gathering, telling the crowd, you see, in Russia, they don't know how to do anything properly. They don't even know how to make a rope. We are submitting, Mr. Speaker and honorable senators, that by the governor persisting in the very series of misconduct that brought us here 1 year ago, the only change being the particulars, she's actually telling you that you see in Kenya, the Senate doesn't know how to do anything properly, not even how to impeach a rogue governor. Anyway, after this guy fell to the ground, in Russia then this was considered a message from the gods, that the gods did not intend the prisoner to be executed, and the king was allowed to grant a pardon if this type of miracle happened. So, a messenger was sent on horseback to the monarch in a large white horse to tell him about this miracle and request the monarch, as was the custom in Russia, to sign the pardon. And indeed, the monarch began drafting the pardon, and just as he was about to sign it, he asked the messenger, by the way, did Rayelev say anything when this miracle of breaking of the rope in a public hanging occurred? And of course, the messenger told the king, yes, he said in Russia, they don't know how to do anything, not even how to make a rope. And the monarch said, in that case, let us prove the contrary. The monarch tore the pardon and directed that the execution be repeated the following day, and this time the rope did not break, marking the end of the sad story of Kodrati Rayelev, a Russian poet, singer, military officer, and many other things. Why do we say this story, Mr. Speaker? We will be presenting evidence before you, and even as the charges were read, you heard several times the clerk saying this issue was alive in the previous proceedings. What happened? The governor, after the brief few weeks of camaraderie, adopted a defiant stance in which she held, and she has it even in her own evidence, several public rallies defiantly telling whoever can to listen, kaende, kaende, kabati, kabati. Kaende, kaende, Mr. Speaker, is Sheng, is Nairobi slang for I don't care, whatever will be, I'll do what I do. In Swahili they say, na liwe liwalo. That is the meaning of kaende, kaende. And we'll be showing you how, throughout the last 1 year, even after the graceful lessons from Senator Tobiko, I recall, from the other senators, the governor's mantra in persisting on this a series of misconduct is, I don't care, whatever will be, will be. Kyocera, Kyocera, whatever will be, will be. She doesn't care about the consequences, the future, and whatnot. That is how, Mr. Speaker, we have come before you with a motion arranged under 7 thematic counts, setting out 39 specific forms of gross violations of the law and the Constitution, and which, in our humble submission, are conduct and becoming of any leader. Mr. Speaker, we expect, and it will happen, although I'm not a prophet, just like last time, the governor will appear on this podium taking the posture of an innocent and vulnerable victim of toxic masculinity, harmful patriarchy, gender stereotyping, political schemes. That's what our response tells you. It is back to, it wasn't me, by Shaggy. And the governor, if you want to confirm it, at page 2 of our response, she tells you, this motion will not be here. It is a scheme by our deputy who is power hungry to take the governorship through the back door. She tells you it is the Njurincheke. She tells you if our own officials, our own secretary, our own chief of staff has done anything wrong, even the things she acknowledged, she said they bear their own responsibility. It wasn't me. In short, she will come to you looking as meek as a lamb. But luckily we have lived through the experience, Mr. Speaker. Our message to the Senate is, if you acquit her this time, she will walk out this door and it will be kaende, kaende, Kyocera, Kyocera. Whatever will be, I don't care, na liwe liwalo, and Meru will be back to the perpetual, endless crisis that it has been engulfed for a year. We will be showing you that the governor has made several admissions before the county assembly. What we find strange is that now, in our response to you, she produces documents she failed to produce before the assembly. We will be able to show you, beyond any shadow of doubt, that those documents are forgeries. And in conclusion, so that my learned colleague will take the remaining bit, just like last time, Chair, we are telling you not to fall for the ruse. If you see a humble, meek, polite-looking governor, it is because the occasion of the day requires that to look meek, humble, vulnerable, and whatnot. But if you make the mistake this time round, it will be Kyocera, Sera, whatever will be. I don't care. Kaende, kaende. That is what she will do. And for those reasons, for purposes of my part, Chair, we are asking you to borrow from Nicholas I of Russia in 1825, 1826, to prove that the Senate of the Republic of Kenya can actually do things properly by impeaching a rogue governor. I led the floor to my learned colleague, Mr. Mari Maranya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, honorable members of the Senate.